Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I am AmalgamAsh, and if you've been watching my channel for some time, you may already know the answer to the question posed by the title of this video. On this channel, I try to promote creativity and confidence through various outlets rooted in games, sometimes through assets and tutorials that are made for various role-playing game-making tools. To that end, I wanted to address what I think is a valid question amongst independent developers of many skill levels and experience. Whether you've been making RPGs in rpgmaker for 25 years, started out coding on a Commodore 64, currently create in Unity, or have only just dipped your toes in commercially available 3D RPG engines like RPG in a Box or Smile Game Builder. What RPG engine should you use? There are similar questions asked in each of the communities when outsiders join and want to know if engines are still worth using after 1, 2, 6, or 10 years of development, which usually get a variety of sometimes helpful, sometimes very conflicting, and sometimes outright misrepresentative answers. As hard as it is to believe, there is merit in wanting to use RPGmaker 2003 over something like Unity just for its framework or the skill or intent of the developer. There is merit in wanting to use RPG Papermaker instead of MV3D. There is merit in using Smile Game Builder instead of a 2D RPG making engine for somebody who doesn't find the RM3D plugins intuitive or as rewarding. And there's merit in using Smile Game Builder instead of a 2D RPG making engine. Even RPG Maker 95 is a valid choice for an engine depending on the use case. Don't believe me? What if your specific need was to make a game without coding that needed to run on the Windows 95 platform? All of these preferences and even the reverse of these preferences are valid ones that various budding and experienced developers have for their own reasons. I've seen a few developers, and I'm being serious here, jump between communities around several different tools, as if they finally ran into some limitation with Engine X that they weren't aware of before, which immediately made it a deal breaker for them, and decided Engine Y would be better. I've seen this happen with people who were active in the community, asking questions and speaking intelligently about the engine they were using, implying practice and experience, sometimes just leaving because the tools didn't have a good set of baseline tutorials that were tailored for users of their learning style. And I've seen these same devs leave to go into other communities and ask about Engine Z, as if they had found that Engine Y didn't have what they needed either, after the same level of community interaction. And this is not a call out, there's nothing wrong with this. It takes a lot of time to learn any given game engine to be able to work within its limitations or around them, especially if an unconventional mechanic is needed for your project, a mechanic that may not fall within the expected conventions of a JRPG. But it occurred to me that this could also happen if someone is trying to settle on having the best of the best before starting to identify their project. And to me, this could be a problem. This results in the dev being convincible that without the context of a project in mind, there is somehow one specific objectively best game engine out there that will solve all of their problems before they know what those problems even are. And unfortunately, such an engine doesn't exist because such an engine cannot exist. For every use case a given engine meets, it will be unable to meet another. Wolf RPG Editor and Hamster Republic are 2D only. MV3D and MZ3D cannot work with FBX models and animations. Depending on the version, RPG Maker doesn't deploy to consoles without intensive code changes. SGB doesn't let you change resolutions and only supports one material per model. Unity has usage overhead for its deployed projects that results in not being able to run efficiently on select ARM platforms, and that's before you implement additional RPG framework that doesn't require coding. RPG in a Box and RPG Papermaker are stylized for specific aesthetics. Even engines like YRPG and Architect, both in active development and not released yet, will have use cases they simply won't cover for every developer, putting them in a subjective order that is always dependent on the needs of the project. And in almost all cases, you are forced to use square tiles, 90-degree viewing conventions, 45-degree slopes, stop me if you've heard this before, and tiles from sets that will bloat your game file or cause more usage overhead. Those are just some of the limitations, obviously, but if you find yourself in this loop from jumping from engine to engine, it may signify that you aren't set on exactly what you want your project to be in the first place. If this is indeed the case, breathe in deeply. Consider carefully whether you do have a clear vision of your project. This is a necessary step on the path to game enlightenment. If you don't, however, I implore you to consider that this is not a bad thing. While exploring the different environments designed to create RPGs can be time-consuming if you have been accustomed to using any one in particular, it can also be sometimes inspiring or a motivating experience, which can eventually lead to being able to start your project, and I am in support of that. So let's get back to the question, and the answer, which may be redundant at this point. Which game engine should you use in 2022? First thing to do is to decide what your project is going to be. Can it be described simply by saying RPG with no distinct mechanic or feature that will make it unique? Do you require a 2D top-down old-school aesthetic, or do you crave a 3D world? Do you want an action combat system? Do you want to be able to deploy your game to a platform other than Windows? What are your inspirations? Are you creating this game as a hobby or to gain profit? There isn't objectively a great or even a good choice for you until you know for certain what elements your project will contain. Then it's a matter of eliminating what engines won't meet your needs, unless you are willing to trade project needs for other desirable factors that may be included with a game engine. These are only a few questions out of the many that have various levels of importance to the asker, and thus they may be asked in a different order for each developer. But if you are ready to commit to making your dream game, whether you consider yourself serious or casual, then they are questions that should be asked so that you will know what tools will be the best for you and your style of creating. Without knowing what it is you want to make, settling on the engine that will allow your work to take shape by your hand at random could fuel your creativity in a unique direction, or just as easily completely drain your motivation. And so the answer to the question of which engine is, as always, it depends on the project and the creator. For what it's worth, I haven't observed any engine, whether it's complete or in development, being completely deprecated by anything else in 2022. While you will most certainly have an engine in mind, it won't be for everyone. And while you may even have an engine you think can be easily outdone by another, it too will have the ability to make a very specific game better than anything else, including the engine that you think makes it obsolete. This leads to statements like, for the game I am making, there is no better engine than RPG in a box. And for the game my friend is making, Smile Game Builder is perfection. And for this game idea, there are 3 perfect engines. Looks like I could just go with the one that is easiest for me to work with. And all of these statements can be true. One more thing I want to mention is that this is not an attempt to dissuade or alienate those who would otherwise find it useful to compare features between engines, nor do I want to gatekeep comparing engines in a general sense. I discourage that kind of thing. The purpose of my answer to this question is to encourage folks to see that there are many different tools with their own sets of features and functions that will allow them to be as creative as they can. Every tool comes with a cost or a limitation of some kind, and to consider how this will affect what it is they would like to create. I did this video because I think it's easy for some to misinterpret the audience of a given tool by generalizing them or disregarding their skill level or intent. While I do think for many of us who create games or gaming content, it's in our nature to be as helpful as possible, and I think a lot of folks who push a given engine have good intentions, I feel it would be very unusual and a bit presumptuous to find this question posed by someone who would end up recommending one tool arbitrarily. You'll never see me doing an RPG engine tier list because without context, they're all going to either be S rank or F. So in a future video, I would love to explore the questions that a game developer might have to get their RPG project off of the ground. To that end, I would love to hear what questions you have had to ask to get your project into a state of development. And with that, later I'll share my own various projects and explain my engines of choice for each. Anyway, that's all for now. I hope you'll look forward to RPG engine overviews, because this year I plan on looking at every feature offered by SGB, RPG in a Box, RPG Papermaker, and other engines to help you understand what each one offers and where each option will take you in terms of development heights. So thank you as always very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Please leave any commentary, opinions, suggestions, concerns, or outright roasts in the comments below, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye for now.